5.
In November 1973, Betty Eadie underwent a partial hysterectomy, after which she says she floated out of her body and passed through a tunnel to heaven. She said she was guided by 3 hooded monk-like figures who claimed to have always been her guardian angels and informed her that she had died prematurely. Betty Eadie said, "I saw a pinpoint of light in the distance. The black mass around me began to take on more of the shape of a tunnel, and I felt myself travelling through it at an even greater speed, rushing toward the light. I was instinctively attracted to it, although again I felt that others might not be. As I approached it, I noticed the figure of a man standing in it, with the light radiating all around him. There was no questioning who he was. I knew that he was my saviour and friend and God. He was Jesus Christ, who had always loved me, even when I thought he hated me."
4.
Following a pastors' conference in January 1989, Don Piper was driving over a bridge when a Texas Department of Corrections tractor-trailer truck crossed the center line and ran into him head-on. He said he was instantly transported to heaven, where he found himself surrounded by dead relatives and friends, and a large pale gate. The gate of heaven was a magnificent edifice. The one that I saw, it looked no less than a giant gate that had been sculpted from mother of pearl. He said behind the portal was such a light that I don't conceive how you could see it in an earthly body. It can only be envisioned in a heavenly body because it was just too bright. As he lay there crushed in his vehicle on the bridge, a pastor come by who prayed over him. The EMS staff had told him that Don was deceased. After the pastor prayed, he instantly found himself back in his vehicle, staring up at a tarp that had been draped over him. At the hospital, it was revealed that although he suffered no major head trauma, nearly every bone in his body had been broken or shattered. Don wrote a book called 90 Minutes in Heaven after his recovery.
3.
Author Bill Weiss tells a story of laying in bed at 3 a.m. and being suddenly thrown into the depths of hell, where he was tormented by demons. He said he was placed in a small cell with vicious beasts who looked like reptiles. He recalls understanding that they had been assigned to torment him, which they did, throwing him against the walls and piercing his flesh with their claws. The pain became so bad that he wished for death, but was not obliged. He said that he had heard the cries of millions, who were either burning in hell or being tortured as he was. When he awoke, his wife noted that the clock read 3:23 a.m. So his book is titled 23 Minutes in Hell.
2.
Following a simple medical procedure for pancreatitis in 2009, Crystal McPhee of Oklahoma went into full respiratory arrest on the operating table. When that happened, she says she experienced a trip to heaven that renewed her faith in God, whom she met in person. She described him as an immense brightness, one that she could feel, taste, touch, hear and smell, and also recalled having 500 senses while in heaven, as opposed to the traditional human 5. "I had angels, I had God, and I fell to my knees in front of him," she said, adding that she'd always been a doubter prior to the experience. When she was asked twice by God if she would like to return to Earth, she chose to stay both times. But despite her insistence, God sent her back, though not before relieving her of her guilt and shame. McPhee released a book about her experience called Waking Up in Heaven in April 2013.
1.
While diving for lobster one day on the island of Mauritius, Ian McCormack was stung on the arm by a box jellyfish. He says that by the time the ambulance arrived, he had already felt completely paralysed and necrosis had begun to set in. As he lay dying, Ian saw a vision of his mother praying for him, and after he made it to the hospital, he was clinically dead for a period of 15 to 20 minutes. That's when he found himself in a very dark place and began to hear people screaming. From the darkness I began to hear men's voices screaming at me, telling me to shut up, that I deserved to be there, that I was in hell. I just couldn't believe it. But as I stood there, a radiant beam of light shone through the darkness and immediately began to lift me upward. I found myself being transported up into an incredibly brilliant beam of pure white light. It seemed to be emanating from a circular opening far above me. I felt like a speck of dust being drawn up into a beam of sunlight. As he walked towards the light, Ian says he could feel it giving off a living emotion, and that God then spoke to him. McCormack hasn't written a book, but has shared his story with several news outlets and talk shows.